Thank you, Andy Charles. That last song that the congregation sang, and then the special, of course, were directed to our hearts about troubles. We have trouble, all of us. We live in a time of trouble. If you haven't noticed that, you'll recognize it before we get in. Take your Bibles this morning to 2 Timothy chapter 3. 2 Timothy chapter 3. I want to speak about the troublesome times we live in. I've got a quote here. When we forget where we have come from, we will also forget where we are going. When we forget where we have come from, we will also forget where we are going. I think really, as I look at what's going on in our world, now the coronavirus is one thing. I'm just going to deal with some issues. By the way, one of the reasons I don't like to go live is I may say something I don't want to say, and so I'm kind of cautious about putting that on there. So that's one caution this Sunday, okay? Especially in a message like this. Truth is, the coronavirus was one thing. It has been a tragic thing. Over 100,000 people in America have died. Now, we can argue all the points, depends on which side you stand on. Did they all die of the coronavirus? Did some not die? Did they have? I don't know, but I know this, 100,000 people are dead. And that's a tragedy anywhere. Worldwide, more than that. And we have come from that, and just when we thought we're going to turn the corner and get this thing over with, we see a tragedy in our nation take place. The death of George Floyd, which was a tragedy, by the way. Any death is a tragedy. Don't care who it is. Don't care whether they're white or black. Don't care what their background. Don't care whether they're criminal or non-criminal. Any death is a tragedy. And it indeed was a tragic thing to happen. And the results of it are what bother me. That it happened, I believe, will be taken care of by our American justice system. We have the best justice system in the world. It is not perfect. Please understand that. There's no such thing as a perfect justice system except God. God is the only one who can look at every situation and say, this is right, this is wrong, this is how it's going to settle. Everything else comes down to man. Amen. But when we forget where we've come from, we've been blessed. Most people yesterday, I believe, missed a very important day in American history. Some of you caught it, I'm sure. Some of you are veterans and you caught it. Others of you saw it somewhere and you thought, oh wow, that's right, June 6, 1944, D-Day. One of the most tragic days in American history, one of the greatest days in American history. The Allied invasion of the beaches of France in the attempt to put an end to Hitler's evil regime and evil conquest of the world. I believe if we hadn't done that, we'd probably all be in a whole different country than we are today. 2,501 Americans died on that day. 1,913 Allied deaths on that day for a massive number of deaths in one day, especially at that time in history. The invasion carried over 150,000 Allied troops into the beaches of Normandy. At the end of the first bloody day of the battle, all 5 beaches, from my understanding, Utah, Omaha, Gold Beach, Juneau, and Sword Beach were taken by the Allied forces. By the way, those are not the names that they were named in France. Those were the code names that they were given by the military in this operation. Tremendous manpower, tremendous planning, tremendous scheduling to go against an evil force and stop it. By the way, I grew up on stories of that. I grew up being around men who were heroes of that war. Many of you did as well. I grew up going to Jake's Pawn Shop in Bainbridge, Georgia, and looking for hours at all the equipment that they used, that he sold there. Didn't buy much of it because he didn't have much money, but he didn't care if I went there and just looked. And just wandered through that store over and over, seeing all the things that these men had used in their conquest of evil. But I believe we're under attack again in our nation, in our churches. I believe probably more than ever before, the Christian religion is under attack. The idea of Christianity itself is under attack. And we need 2 things to solve it. It sounds easy and it sounds simple, but it's not that simple. We need the love of God and the gospel of Christ to defeat the enemy. No government program is going to solve our problems. That's why we've got to stop looking to the government. They can't solve it. No human program can solve our problems. We need to look to the love of God and the gospel of Christ to defeat the enemy. We are not a perfect country. We never have been, and we never will be. But it's the best one I know of in the world. People have asked me, well, where would you like to live? I'd like to live in America. Amen. I don't want to live anywhere else. Because I believe that this country is the best country on the face of the earth and has been blessed beyond measure. And I believe the reason we've been blessed beyond measure is because when this country was founded, it was founded on, you can argue this all you want to, you'll be wrong, it was founded on Christian principle. Now, notice what I did not say, it was not founded by Christians. All the men who founded this country were not Christians. But it was founded on Christian principle. The principles of Scripture, the principles of a divine providence guiding people here, the principle of a God who was over everything, looking down on people and requiring them to lean back toward Him. It was founded on Christian principle, and it is blessed because it was. Our early schools were founded on, most early schools in the United States were in churches. They weren't, quote, Christian schools like we have today. They were schools that used the Bible to teach kids how to read and write. And they taught the Bible, and they were very strict and very disciplined, and there was an awful lot of self-discipline put into place in those early schools. And through that, into the lives of the people. What do we need to see? I believe whether we're black, white, or any other color, we need to return to the principles upon which this nation was founded. And as Christians, we need to return to the principles of Scripture to understand how this crisis can be overcome and overtaken. We're in a mess, folks. We really are. Amen. And it doesn't seem to be ending. And there's no easy, understand this, there's no easy answer from a political standpoint. I would not want to be a politician in any city today, having to make those choices. Because whatever you do, you're wrong. You're wrong to half the crowd, just about half the crowd. And we, those of you who were fortunate enough to grow up during the 60s, you remember the revolutions that took place then. And the takeovers of college campuses and all the things that went on then, which was a throw-off of the authority that was there then. That has settled down a little, and now we're coming to where it's throw off the government and the authority and the police. I just don't understand the concept, and maybe someone can explain it to me, of abolishing a police department. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. I'm sorry. Well, there are some, by the way. There are policemen who are crooked. There are bankers who are crooked. There are preachers who are crooked. There are painters who are crooked. There are electricians who are crooked. And on the list can go. Any job you give me, you can find someone in that job. As a matter of fact, more than someone. You can find someones in those jobs who are crooked and who are out to get what they can and hurt others. But we have to understand some things, I believe, that come from both biblical principle and from our founding documents. All men are created equal. Thomas Jefferson said in the Constitution that all men are created equal and they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Now stop right there and notice what he said. They are endowed by someone. Who are they endowed by? The Creator. So those men, and Thomas Jefferson, as far as I know, was not what we would consider a believer today. We would say, well, he had a little questionable theology. But he realized there was a Creator. And he said, we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. That is the hardest word to say in the whole thing. And he said, we are given those rights. Our rights come from God. We need to understand that. The right to be human comes from God. Amen. Because God created man. The right to be who I am and to accomplish what I want comes from God. Understand this. Government didn't give me my rights, and therefore they cannot take away my rights. Government didn't give you your rights. If you believe the government gives you the right to be who you are, you've already drank the Kool-Aid. You're already headed down the path that they want you to go. Because the government didn't give me my rights. God gave me the right to be who I am, and God has enabled me and equipped me to be who I am. He has made me as He wanted me to be made. It comes a wonderful day when we get to a point that we accept ourselves and say, you know what? We look in the mirror and say, you know what? This is how God made me. Now, some of you look in there and say, with this good-looking face, and you men know you're telling a story, but that's okay. You can do that if you want to. And I know that God made us the way we are. We've been given equal opportunity in this country. Understand that. That they are enabled by their Creator. They are given by their Creator certain unalienable rights, among these which are life, liberty. What's the next one? Happiness, right? No. The pursuit of happiness. There's a big difference between happiness and the pursuit of happiness. Okay? A big ice cream right now would make me happy. The pursuit of it is I've got to talk my wife into going to Dairy Queen when church is open. That's going to be hard to do. Okay? The idea of maybe a big steak would make you happy, but the pursuit of getting the money to buy that steak may not be yours today. So you're going to have to wait. Pursuit is the ability to go after something. We are given equal opportunity. And I believe in America we are an equal opportunity country. I'm sorry. I don't buy the narrative that is trying to be sold to us by the mainstream media, nor by everybody else, that we're not treated fairly because of this and this. Listen, everybody, poor folks can say, well, we're not treated fairly because we're poor. Then do like most of us and get 2 jobs to make enough money to live. And get what you want. Do like most people do, okay? Find a way to be able to go beyond what you are doing. Educate yourself so that you can get a better job. There's a novel idea. And not wait for everyone. There are too many people sitting back waiting and saying, I don't have what I want. You need to give it to me. Can I say this? You don't owe me one thing and I don't owe you one thing. And we don't owe anyone else anything. Except the opportunity to achieve. I love reading the book, Uncle Sam's Plantation, about a young lady who was born into a slum, raised in a slum, grew up in that culture, and her life became exactly what she grew up in. She ended up having, I believe, 5 or 6 abortions, which, by the way, is murder. Murdered 5 or 6 children on her growth into adulthood and maturity, but she came to know Christ. God changed her life. And she began to say, I don't want to live like this anymore. And she began to work. And began to do well in her schoolwork. And she went on and graduated college and became part of the administration of the Reagan administration. And she worked her way up till she became somebody. Let me put it that way. By the way, no government program could take her from where she was and make her into someone. She had to decide, and by God's grace, she decided, I want to follow Jesus, and I want to get out of this lifestyle, and I want my life to be different. And she pursued happiness, and she found it. It's important that we learn that part of it is the equal opportunity, but the rest of it is the equal outcome is what I put into it. What I give it. So that I can get there. Understand from Scripture that there's only one race of people on the earth. We need to stop the idea of the 3 different races or the 2 different races or however many you want to break it down to. There's no such thing except one race of people, the human race on this earth. When each man of each color gets cut, what color does he bleed? Very good, red. If you get down to the point where you're dying and you need a heart transplant, it doesn't matter if it comes from an Asian, a black person, or a white person. It doesn't matter. So I'll take one from anybody if I need it. You lay down long enough and I think you're gone, I might take yours, so be careful. If I need one. You know why? Because it doesn't matter. We're all the same. If you're going to need a blood transfusion so that you can live, you don't stop and wonder, well, where did it come from? By the way, I remember hearing some of those crazy things years ago. I wouldn't take blood from this or that. Then go ahead and die. You got 2 choices there. There's one race of people on the earth. That is the human race God created. Now, there are different ethnic backgrounds. There are different colors. There are different shades of color. Let me say it that way. They're not different colors. They're different shades of color. If you check it out, the only difference is the melatonin in the skin that makes the color. Listen, we're all different. There's not a white person in here. No, you're not. You're a shade of brown. You may be a very, very light shade, but you're a shade of brown. I hate to break it to you. Some of you just found out you're not white. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. But it's true. When we understand that God made man, all other divisions are man-made and of necessity by nature will create division. By the way, I don't care if my boss is white or black. I really don't. I've worked for both in my time. And I've been proud to work for both. And the ones I have worked under, I have been fortunate to work under people of all different colors who have been hardworking people and have expected the same out of me. I will never forget working at UPS, working for a guy who was Hispanic. He was my immediate supervisor, and I remember him challenging us one night to how fast we could unload a truck. Little did I realize he was getting the truck unloaded faster. He just was using a game to do it. I figured that out about 20 years later. And he came in and said, I'll challenge you. We'll see how many boxes you can get out of here in a certain amount of time. And he went first. Boy, he unloaded, I think it was 100 boxes in a minute and a half. I mean, he was sending them out. And none of us beat him. By the way, I had a high respect for him. He was a man of integrity. He was a man who believed in hard work. The supervisor at that time over the entire division in Jacksonville, which is a large hub there, was a black man who, when something went wrong, came out of his office and climbed up on the belt and started undoing the packages that had jammed up. That impressed me. He was a man who worked his way to the top. He started out, by the way, unloading trucks, same as everybody else. I was impressed by that. It wasn't about his color, wasn't about who he was. All other divisions we bring into life are man-made, and of necessity will create division if we're not careful. Now, all division is not bad. If you're an Italian family, okay, and you're a quiet person and don't like noise, don't get in with an Italian family. Because they like noise. They're loud, and they love to laugh, and they love to pinch your cheeks, and they love... my co-teacher there at school is Italian, and she says, you get around my family, it's going to get noisy. She'll warn you. That's just what they do. We need today, as said by Martin Luther King, I dream of a day when my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I totally agree with that statement. If you've never listened to one of his sermons, by the way, go online and click on one. There's something about his voice. I've been to his birthplace and to his church there in Atlanta, and you walk into the church there, and first of all, I love it because it creaks. It's one of those old churches with a wooden floor, and every step you take, you hear the creaking. When everybody stood up, everybody sat down, you could hear the creaking of the pews. And then he comes on and he's speaking, and whether you agree with him or not, whether you liked him or not, his philosophy was right. Let's change through nonviolence, number one, and let's change through changing people's hearts. Not laws, not all the rest, although laws had to be changed, but let's change people's hearts. I believe we ought to look at a person by their character, by how they behave. And that's how I look at people. That's why when I look at this so-called protest and I see people, white and black, by the way, understand it's all, breaking windows and running in and running out of a store with 6 boxes of shoes that they didn't pay for, I have a hard time saying, that's a protest. Yeah, that's terrible what that guy did. That has nothing to do with what took place in Minneapolis. And I believe we have to let the law take care of that. That's the law's responsibility. But when we turn it into something that's craziness, then we're in a danger. Because all men are created equal. That shop owner that you just stole those 6 pair of shoes from is pursuing his happiness. You just destroyed it.
Amen.
You just destroyed it. You want your happiness, but you're not willing to work for it. And again, this is not a black-white issue. We need to understand that. This is a heart issue among people of all colors. Secondly, I believe this. There is a personal responsibility for all of us. We have to ask ourselves this question. Now, I've seen a lot of challenges this week online. I have some friends that I totally disagree with what they said, totally disagree with what they did, but that's their right to say it and their right to do it, and I let them go. And I said, you go ahead and be your crazy self if you want to. I don't even get on there and try to answer because there's just too much negativity. But notice this. Ask yourself this question. What are you doing to make things better? I think as a church we have to ask ourselves, what are we doing to make things better? Are we treating people fairly here? I think we do. Are we treating people with respect here? I think we do. A few weeks ago I did Miss Rose's funeral. It was a very, very brief service. There were only 3 of us there beside the funeral home people. It was a sad day. It really was. But I was so impressed with the Bruton Funeral Home. I had never dealt with them before. I had never done a funeral like that before. And we went out to Climax to the cemetery. And you would have thought, the way they acted, you would have thought there were 150 people in attendance. The dignity that they expressed. We got up to go, they opened the casket. Kathy was there, and they opened the casket. My wife, Kathy, and I were going to walk by. And Mr. Bruton Sr. says, okay, folks, just line up and take your time as you go by. I really thought, what? There are only 3 of us here. Not going to take long. But they had someone there playing the keyboard. And then he sang, Mr. Bruton led us in a song. And I'll just be honest with you, I can't sing like he did. Beautiful version of a song, but I couldn't keep up with him. He said, come on, join in. And you would have thought there were 150 people there. The dignity he showed. Why don't we show that treatment to one another while we're living? What are we doing to make things better? You can make things better by the way you treat others. You can make things better by the way you respect others. And by the way, expect respect from them. That's important. How have you taught your children? Have you taught them to accept people as they are? Or have you taught them to look at a color and decide? Again, if there's only one race, we have a problem. We sometimes, honestly, we grew up in a culture, you grew up in a culture where we looked at color rather than looking at character. Have you taught your children acceptance? To accept that person who may or may not be like they are and they're different? Have you taught your children to have a work ethic? That's one thing that's missing. Oh, wait, here's what I say about those who are protesting, whether they're right or wrong in their protesting. If they had a job, they wouldn't be there. At least they shouldn't be. I can see me going to my boss and saying, or coming to church and say, listen, folks, I'm going to take off a couple weeks to go protest. Is that okay with y'all? Would that be okay? No, it wouldn't be okay. And by the way, it shouldn't be. We need to look and we need to teach our children character. By the way, you teach best by example. You teach best by example. They're watching. Kids watch us and they learn from us. Don't you hate it when your kids say, but Dad, you... Oh, I hate that. Don't you? But Mom, you said, yeah, I know what I said, but you're not supposed to. We had a little boy who got in trouble this last year at school. They were outside. I think he was in 3rd grade. They were outside. I don't know what they were doing, but he had to go to the bathroom. And so he found a tree and he went to the bathroom. And it was funny when they would tell us about it later and said, well, you know, here's what he said. He said, well, I do it all the time at home. Mom says it's okay. And he said, besides that, I went behind the tree. He had solved the problem in his mind because that's what he did at home. And by the way, it would be perfectly fine at home. It just wasn't appropriate in the place that it took place. Parents forgot to explain the 2 parts of the situation to them. Listen, slander is never good. Destruction of property is never good. And the abuse of others is never right nor acceptable. I don't have any right to destroy anything you have. I don't have any right to slander you with false words about what you have done or what you have not done. You don't have any right to slander anyone else about what they have or have not done. I don't have any right to destroy your property. You don't have any right to destroy my property. We need to realize that we have to stop at that point and say, hold on, something else has got to change. My heart attitude's got to change. Self-discipline and restraint, which we are not seeing, are good character qualities which have been left behind. If you've ever watched with your children the Willy Wonka Chocolate Factory, the first one, the little girl who ate the blueberries, and you'll remember, okay, what did she say? I want it now. I want it now. I remember an older gentleman telling me about when they first got married, Frank Bloodworth. He's dead in heaven now. But I remember him saying when we first got married, he said, we came home to 3 orange crates and a plywood board. That was our dining table. They had an orange crate each to sit on, and the other one was holding up a plywood board that was their dining room table. Now, he still, at this point in life, as he was older, didn't live in luxury. He could have. He had done well in his life. He had gained a lot of wealth, but he still lived simple because he started simple. You know what the problem is now? You got people who want to get married, and when they get married, they want to have 2 new cars and a new house and new furniture and new everything to start with, and they don't want to have to work for it. And then they get themselves all wrapped up in debt because they don't have the restraint. I counseled this couple that I married here a few weeks ago, Johnny and Lindsay, and I told them, I said, whatever you do, don't go in debt. Now, Johnny loves to fish. And I said, Johnny, you like to have it? I said, do you have a fishing boat? Well, I got a John boat. He talks like he's from deep back in the country. I said, really? I said, yeah, what kind of motor you got on it? He said, electric motor. I said, well, that's awesome. I said, don't go buy a boat. He said, oh, I'm not. You know why? I said, wait, save. And when you get to it, it'll mean a whole lot more to you. But we've lost that idea of self-discipline. We've lost that idea of restraint. Protesting is an American right. I agree with protesting. I don't know that I've ever been to an organized protest over anything, but I would go. I'm not against it. If I disagree with something very strongly and they're going to stand in front of the building and carry signs, there's nothing wrong with that. That is American as it can be. But looting and burning and screaming at others is an American wrong. Do you hear what I'm saying? Don't care who you are. I've seen people in grocery stores that I've been embarrassed for. The way they make a fool out of themselves by screaming at a clerk. We made a purchase just the other day, and the gentleman who was helping us with the purchase at Lowe's said, "I just want to thank you." He said, you folks have been so nice. And by the way, he was 80 years old, just about to turn 80, and he's still working at Lowe's, and he said, "I just want to thank you." He said, "You would not believe how I get treated." And I said, "Oh, I would believe it." I said, "I've seen it before." He said, "But because whatever we were looking for, they didn't have the first one, they didn't have the second one, they finally found the third thing we were looking for." He said, "Well, we got this one, and you know, why was I going to pitch a fit? Because they didn't have what I wanted. I had two choices. I could take what they had, or I could go to another store. Or I could wait till he got it in 6 months from now." And so I decided to take what he had. Our form of government was made for a disciplined people. I forget which one of our founding fathers said that the American form of government, the republic that we have created here, was not made for a lawless people. Understand this. It won't hold up long under lawlessness. It is made for and I believe he used the word religious people. He did not mean that they were Baptists. He did not mean that they were Methodist or Presbyterian or anything else. He meant that they had a discipline based in their character, based on who they believed God is, and therefore they made their decisions wisely and discreetly and properly. We need to return to that. I love it. I've seen a couple of them where the mom goes into some child who's running wild in the streets, grabs him by the ear, and whips his behind all the way home. I love that, but it's a little too late by that time. Should have done that when he was younger. We are seeing a generation that has come up without that restraint and who wants everything, just like the little girl in Willy Wonka, wants it right now. What is the source of our conflict? I believe if we boil it down, that it can come to one root problem. And it is not an easy fix. We have come to one root problem, the breakdown of the traditional biblical family and home. That's what's wrong with America. You really want to know what's wrong? We've lost the family. All families still exist, I know. And by the way, I am not criticizing anyone who's been through tragedy in your family. I've been through enough in mine. You've been through enough in yours. And we've seen it happen. But let me tell you what's happened. The devil has worked overtime to destroy the biblical idea of a family with a mom and a dad and children. And I believe that is what God founded. God founded three things. He founded the home in Genesis. He founded government in Genesis. And he founded the church in the New Testament. Those three spheres, when they handle their responsibilities, when parents take care of their children to teach them the right way, they generally grow up to be good citizens. Now, that doesn't mean your children will not make mistakes. Did you make any mistakes? I'm sure Travis did, but most of the rest of us did. And everybody knows Travis, right? We all did. We all did dumb things. I think about some of the things I did when I was a teenager, and I don't tell some of them. I don't tell my school kids some of them. Because I'm thinking, no, they respect me. They look at me, "Oh, Mr. Knight, would you pray for me?" And I say, "Yes, I'll pray." They knew what I did when I was a teenager. They think I couldn't pray and God would hear. We did some crazy things. I'm not even going to mention them. Some of them I want to, but I'm afraid one of the young people here, "Oh, that'd be great. I'm going to do that." So I'm not going to tell you. You don't learn character and love from parents who don't show character and love. They learn it by living it. And we've all failed in that area. We've all failed. We need to get back to showing love to one another. Loving people. Caring about their behavior. Caring about how, yes, I believe in discipline, but I also believe that discipline has to be based on love. Without love, discipline becomes abuse. And it's dangerous. God has been left out of our society. Our Judeo-Christian legal system, again, which is based on the idea of Christianity, is falling apart because the foundation has been removed. When we removed the Ten Commandments from the idea of law and we removed God from the idea of education, We removed the foundation upon which our moral pillars were built.
Amen.
And it's sinking. And we are seeing the results of that sinking over about the last 50 to 60 years when society decided, let's just leave God out of this. Amen. By the way, I don't want it to be a Baptist system of law. I don't want it to be a Methodist system of law. I want it to be a biblical system of law. And we're seeing more and more of those rights being taken away, even with other movements that are coming in that are trying to replace that with a Sharia system of law. The biblical system is the only one that's true and that will work. We need fathers to stand for the truth. We need mothers to stand for the truth. We need young people who will stand for the truth and say, wait a minute, God made people. God told me to love them. I'm supposed to care for people. Now that caring sometimes involves discipline. That caring sometimes involves punishment, if the law says so. And again, the law is not always right, but it's always the law. I've been stopped a few times in my life by police officers. So this has nothing to do with white or black. This has to do with when they stop me. First thing I do is put my hands on the steering wheel. I'm going to go ahead and tell you a secret. I got a ticket a couple of months ago. My wife was sick. I was going to see my daughter, and I was speeding in Gadsden County. And sure enough, I come down that place that ought to be a 55 zone, but it's not. And I knew it when I saw it. I just slowed down and pulled over. Put my hands on the steering wheel because I knew I was busted. There was nothing I could say. And he came up, two of them got out. That kind of scared me. And one came to each side of the car. I was in the old Jeep, and, sir, can I see your license? I already had it out. Yes, sir. By the way, I didn't argue with him. I didn't tell him, but sure, you don't understand. I'm a Baptist preacher. I'm on a call. There's somebody dying out here somewhere. Could have made up a story, and I could have told him he was going to the hospital, but there's no hospital over there close by. But I wouldn't have done it anyway. No, I was wrong. The worst thing that hit my mind was, I'm going to have to tell my wife about this. That was the worst thing that hit my mind. But you know what? I was wrong. But I treated him with total respect. He gave me a ticket. Said, thank you, sir. Have a great day. I'm thinking, you just ruined my day. How could I have a great day? But listen, I didn't deserve anything except punishment. I did not deserve grace. I did not deserve mercy. I wish he'd given it to me, but he didn't. And $183 later, I took care of it. Okay? So it was done. That's what I'm saying. It's important that we learn to treat people with respect who deserve respect. The Bible says, give honor to those whom honor is due. It doesn't matter who the president is. If I meet him, I'm going to refer to him as Mr. President. I don't care which one it is. It doesn't matter who the governor is, whether he's Democrat or Republican. I can care less. If I meet him, Mr. Governor, glad to meet you, or call him by his name, with respect, with a Mr. or title before, a governor before. I knew Governor